place that we usually have them when we start. Good morning and welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Roxanne Harrison and I serve on the worship team. I will be your celebrant this morning. If you are a visitor, we are so glad you are here. We welcome every person of goodwill just as you are. Whatever body you inhabit, whomever you love, whatever your age, you are welcome here. We invite everyone to join us for coffee, treats, and conversation after the service, both in person or on Zoom. And for the folks on Zoom, you will find the order of service in the chat. And now please take a moment and greet those around you today, especially someone you don't know well. And we're gonna say hi to the Zoomers too, because
Hi.
And remember a wave to those who are Zooming in. There are several announcements that you may have already seen. One more announcement. What do Joy, the annual CUUF yard sale through 21st. Your input, involvement, and good stuff are wanted. Watch the newsletter for updates. All right. Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Pascuosa, and that's making me really emotional this morning. For thousands of years, the Pascuosa have been stewards of this land. And I'm just gonna take a minute and let that settle in. These are words we hear every week, and these are words, this impacts people's lives in ways that most of us don't even know. For thousands of years, the Pascuosa have been stewards of this land, fishing, hunting, gathering roots and berries, and practicing cultural traditions. The Pascuosas still live here. We acknowledge that their land has been taken over because the U.S. government broke treaty obligations and carelessly allowed uninvited white colonizers to settle here. And I think that's what's impacting me so much, is things that are happening right now in our world are very connected. We stand alongside our Indigenous neighbors as they continue their traditions and seek to have all their rights recognized. We acknowledge our shared responsibility to sustain right relations with each other and the land. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome.
Roxanne has already called us to worship by being fully present, emotionally present. Let Mother Earth, in this moment, as we sit together, let her just be herself, our everything. Let Earth be our sanctuary. Let her seeds make landfall in soft caverns of soil. Let blissful earthworms swirl their way through meadows as though they own it, which they do. Let our gathering be as aware as a forest. Let our gathering be anchored among the stars. Like sky's edges, may we be ribboned with bird flight, rustling with the life of rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans. May all I cherish about Mother Earth be cherished endlessly at all hours, including this hour. And may the evening find us turning our hands up like this to gather more of Earth's blessings like rain. May this be our religion as we praise what is of greatest worth. Amen. Now I invite you all to rise together in spirit and in body and to sing our song, Bright Morning Stars.
The chalice and flame are a symbol of our congregation gathered in principles and faith. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join me now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, we will speak these lighting words in unison. As we light this chalice, may it remind us of the sacred rhythm of life, the pulse of creation, and the power we have to sustain and shape this world. Speaking of mothers and things that... All right. I know. Thank you. All right. On that note, I invite the people along the center aisle to please rise and form an arch so our children can go to the classes as we sing to one another. Go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share.
And now in the spirit of love, we share moments, events in our lives, things to remember and things to honor. I will take a flame down here. You can come forward and speak your name in the microphone and then light a candle or ask me to light a candle. Mother's Day and Father's Day are significant cultural moments in American culture, highly binary. In Jewish and Christian scripture, God is never spoken of as having a female gender. But several times, God is said to be like a loving mother. I'll give you 3 examples from Christian and Jewish scripture. The first is from the prophet Hosea, chapter 13. He reveals that God says in anger at harm done to Jerusalem, I will be like a mother bear robbed of her cubs. In Isaiah chapter 66, God says, as a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you, and you will be comforted in Jerusalem. And Jesus echoes this passage In Luke's Gospel, chapter 13, when Jesus speaks for God and says to those of the holy city, "How often have I longed to gather you together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings." However, 4 centuries before these words came to be part of the Christian tradition, the Christian Bible, there's an ancient scholar who's known as Lao Tzu. May have been one person, may have been a group of people editing various texts. Lao Tzu wrote the classic Tao Te Ching 400 years before Jesus. And in this he says, "The way is called the Great Mother. Without a name, she is called the Great Mother. She is eternal, the beginning of heaven and earth. The way is like a veil, barely seen, but use it always, and it will never fade." And in chapter 25 of the Tao Te Ching, she says, the author says, "There is something that contains everything. Before heaven and earth, it is. Unbodied, unchanging, all-pervading, ever-moving, it is the Great Mother, nurturing all existence. People follow the earth. Earth follows heaven. Heaven follows the way. The way follows her own nature." It's the evocation of mothers, and today we honor the idea of the mother. But as the great scholar P.D. Eastman encourages us to ask, do we really have a mother? And who is she really? The snort helps find the mother. The snort is part of the community of love and care, getting the baby bird back to her home, back to finding her mother. And so in a sense, the snort and the cat and the dog, they're all, the cow, and they're all part of the mothering, of the caring, of the nurturing of a soul. For some time now, many have spoken of the earth as our mother. On Earth Day, we should always affirm the earth every day. Honor your mother every day. On Mother's Day, honor your mother. Reduce, reuse, recycle, repair the damage we keep doing. Regretting our mistakes, trying again to honor her with every step, to walk more lightly on this good earth. But as the wisdom readings remind us, there is something beyond the earth itself, shaping all existent things, the creator of all that is the mother of all. And we can listen to the teachings and the guidance of this mother, be aware of our mother. One center, one circumference, pregnant with utter potential. And so it was. Scientific speculation has come to this idea that in the beginning there was this singularity pregnant with all possibilities, and then she moved and she gave birth to billions of galaxies, of stars, of worlds, of lives, beyond counting. The mother of all that is all. Named, it's the beginning of 10 billion things, starts the Tao Te Ching. Nameless, it is the source and guide of us all. Now, I mention the Tao Te Ching, not simply because I think it's great. Well, there's some parts of it that are kind of quirky. But I mention the Tao Te Ching because my mother was going through a lot of change and spiritual, reading things like Wayne Dyer and other people, and really changing her life. And at that time, she started getting involved with the Unitarian Universalists. And there was one person who was in the Unitarian Universalist Church, a younger man, who was talking to my mother. And he thought I needed something more than what I had. And so he bought me a copy of the Tao Te Ching. This version. Well, it was actually the illustrated version, where Jane English had puts multiple illustrations inside of it. I used that one so much that it finally fell apart, and then I had to buy this one. Then I bought this one. This is Jacob Trapp, Unitarian Universalist minister, did his own version of it. And then the marvelous Ursula Le Guin did a version, and that's Ursula Le Guin's copy of it. This has been a part of my life for a long time. And the words over and over, the words of the Great Mother calling us beyond all names. And that opening passage to the Tao Te Ching always spoke to me, essentially, because people talk about God, and there were people who said, the ideas that people have of God are stupid, and there is no God, and many people of us hear this teachings about a supernatural Father who cares about us but fails to do all sorts of stuff for us or does things poorly, and all these questions about God. And when I first read those words, it said, the way that can be spoken is not the eternal way. There's only one. There's only one way, but there's no singular way of talking about it. And I've always felt that this was the center of Unitarianism, and that the Tao Te Ching was the first Unitarian scripture. That there are millions of ways of talking about the one unity, the one universe, the one reality that brings us all together. And we may call her Mother. I'm trying to push that a little bit today, because most of us are immersed in a Jewish Christian culture that only speaks of God in male terms and forgets or sidelines. And this came to me when I was reading an article about, it's in the Buddhist magazine Lion's Roar by Dr. Sarah Jacoby, titled, "Motherhood is More Than a Metaphor." And she teaches at the University of Evanston, Illinois. She's a professor there, coincidentally not far from where the new Catholic Pope was born and raised. In Dr. Jacoby's article, she notices that there's a very old tension in Buddhism. On the one hand, the theory of motherhood as an exalted expression of compassionate love, and on the other, the practice of motherhood as an obstacle to pursuing the Buddhist path. Anyone who's ever tried to change a diaper with too little sleep understands how hard it is to practice mindfulness, compassion, centeredness. Professor Jacoby emphasizes that the idea has even taken on new forms. The ideal, there's the Deva Prajna Paramita. Prajna Paramita is described as the mother of the Buddhas, of all the Buddhas. She writes, known in Tibet as the Great Mother, this enlightened female embodiment of the perfection of wisdom has served as a lodestar for millennia of Dharma practitioners, female as well as male. I just saw the movie Conclave yesterday, and I was really struck how they really had to struggle to make women central in the movie in a world which was highly male-centered. And of course, Jacoby notes the most significant Buddhist sutra, the Karanaya Metta Sutta, Discourse on Loving Kindness. And there's this one passage, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart, one should cherish all living beings. And Jacoby argues that Buddhists, like everyone, should affirm the power of actual motherhood as well as its ideal. They should see it as essential to the spiritual path, to be open how the mundane can actually shape our spirits. Now, I did have this, come across this one reading. Person was saying, motherhood, I've experienced it. And in actuality, motherhood is like a fairy tale, but like a fairy tale in reverse. If you're female especially, you start in this beautiful gown, and then you end up kneeling on the floor, cleaning up everybody's messes. Dr. Jacobi notices that the experiences of motherhood and the relationship between mother and child can be a practicing ground for cultivating selflessness. The greatest mothers are usually ones who are aware of how hard it is to do what they're doing and then try to do it better. Practicing ground for cultivating selflessness, for working with anger. I read another little piece about a woman who was on an airplane, and she asked the stewardess if she could be moved away from the screaming child that was in her row. And the stewardess says, "Normally I'd be glad to move you, but that's your own child." How do you work with your anger? Children will challenge you. Other human beings will challenge you all the time to wake up, to nurture compassion, to come to terms with impermanence, change, grief. Dr. Jacobi notices there's no better way to realize this body's interdependent nature and transient nature than to feel another being hiccuping inside you. No better way to understand that your needs are not the center of the world than being woken up all night by a crying child, or to even be unable to find the time to go to the bathroom by yourself. A few days ago, I heard Jimmy Kimmel wishing everyone a happy Mother's Day. And then he invoked the creator of Mother's Day. He noted that Mother's Day in this country was invented at the beginning of the 20th century, when women still did not have the vote, when women had barely begun able to own property fully and legally in all situations, where women were barely beginning to get full power to have careers and do work outside of the home or teaching. She wanted to honor her mother, who was an empowerer of other women. Her mother was an activist, and she wanted to honor her mother. So she created this ritual in her Episcopal church, in which people who's like her, whose mothers had died, would bring white carnations. And then all those who wanted to honor their living mothers would bring red carnations. And they'd put them all together as a celebration of these women who are claiming their power in the world and trying to do more. The first ritual in her church was held in 1907, and by 1914, the idea, she promoted it very heavily, the idea of Mother's Day was affirmed by the U.S. Congress and Senate. Then she started to get irritated with Mother's Day, a little bit like your mom, right? There's something about its sentimentalizing of women, and that there's also something about the commercializing of the day. Both of those things really irritated her. And she started to complain about Mother's Day. After it had been established and was spreading, was fully established throughout the country, she just started to tell people that they were doing it wrong, complaining about it. And she actually petitioned to have the day undeclared as a holiday. She wanted to end it. And then I knew this history, I'd read this history before, but then Jimmy Kimmel gave this really great insight. He said, what better way for a mother to celebrate Mother's Day than to complain about how badly the next generation was doing her well, right? There is a tension between being a biological mother and being a mother in practice. I knew one Unitarian Universalist, one of my earlier ministries. There was a man whose wife had died in the midstream of their lives. They had the youngest child was 8 at that time, and the oldest child was a teenager. And he just devoted himself to his children. And it came to him fairly quickly as he struggled to do that and to share grief with his children and to nurture them. He had a career that allowed him to be able to spend a lot of time with them, and they were at school. He began to understand that there were things that his wife had always done that he had to do now. Not just physical tasks, but emotional tasks. He had to relate to his children in a way that was mothering. He had to think about, what did she do? How did she do this? And he began to take on the role of being their mother. There was not going to be another woman that was singularly living in the household. So he had to embody that femininity, that femaleness, in honor of his wife, to affirm the value of her life. It was his goal to make it not be a segregated, segmented world in which the one way of being a parent is over here and there's another kind over here. He tried to merge them back together, and he drew on his whole community, his extended family, his Unitarian Universalist congregation, to help him do that. It's interesting that the Buddha, I was talking about Buddhist teachings, Buddha's mother dies within 2 weeks, probably bad medical care, way back. But it's her sister that raises Buddha. It's her sister who nurtures him. There's no stories about it. There's nothing about how she'd get angry at him or how she'd discipline him or how perfect he was as a kid and never did anything wrong. Those stories aren't there. We all are left up to imagine what he was like as a child. But we know that the sister raised him all the way. She took him, breastfed him within it was 2 weeks after she had her own children. And she was already breastfeeding, so she just breastfed that child and then raised him up. And she was the first Buddhist nun, and she was a powerful and significant leader of the earliest Buddhist communities. This is often forgotten. We think of this guy sitting there under the tree, all in perfection. She was striving mightily to get as close to her nephew as she could, to be like him, to reflect his teachings. Mother in practice, not in birth. I know people whose birth mothers were not very loving, or not very involved in their life, or not there at all. I know people whose birth mothers were not the source of their nurture and courage and strength, but there are always someone. There's always someone who can embody the great mother, who can carry forth the work of the great mother, which has both the element of disciplining you when you fall off the path and calling you always back by example, by encouragement, by affirmation to the path of goodness and love and care. Lately I've been, my youngest grandchild turned 1 back in Thanksgiving. Little child. It's amazing how fast human beings change and grow. That little infant that she was several months ago is not there anymore. Wrapped in all sorts of other stuff. But I remember the first time she looked at me, and there was, babies, they look at you and you smile and they smile back, right? But she looked at me, all of a sudden there was this glimmer in her eye, and she pointed at me. My little granddaughter said, "I know who you are." And in that moment, I felt so powerful and important. And I've watched the way in which my younger daughter has grown as a mother around her. And so I say babies are magic. They have this ability to change human beings in ways that we don't even expect. Not everybody, of course. But even my son-in-law, who's a very computer geek kind of guy, just it's fun. And he tries to do flashcards, whether he loves doing, he's a very mind guy. Puts up the little words on the cards, and she can say what they are, and it's, but there's something else going on, and I can see this affection growing him and this sweetness. It's really wonderful to watch. And I was thinking about the way that my granddaughter recognizes me. She can say Papa, but she's getting some few more words now. And suddenly I remembered my own mother. I remembered the last time I saw my mother alive. She had been declining with serious dementia for years. We put her near Lake Sammamish in a care facility, and they were taking good care of her. And I would go, I have different ministries, and I'm traveling around, and I'm far away, and I would just go and visit her, and she would always smile and recognize me. And the last time I came in, she had no words left. She could not speak words. Her brain was not able to create language any longer. But she looked at me as I walked in that room, and she said, "Oh." It was the same voice and the same smile that she had given me her entire life, saying, "I know you. You matter, and I'm proud of you." So I honor my mother today. So I lit a candle before I came up here. Let us honor all who can be called mother, all who try to embody the will of the great mother. Women who conceived, women who bore, women who reared, women who lost, women who let go, women who made different choices, and the people of any gender who mothered, who honor the great mother every day, including today, Mother's Day. And now, to talk about how we nurture this place of mothering and support and creativity, Roxanne will come forward.
The offertory is an ancient element of worship. Giving regardless of amount is a spiritual practice that expresses our thankfulness and generosity. We live these values and abundance. Joyfully sharing our gifts and strengths in service to the greater good is one way we create the beloved community. We live these values in abundance, and we will now receive the offering. Generosity. May your gifts make a difference in our communities through the ministry of this church. And now let's sing our closing song. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, number 8 in the hymnal, or the words are up.
Written by the minister in Prague, Norbert Čapek, just before World War II and the decades before World War II, grew Unitarianism from nothing to thousands, tens of thousands of people, and still endures in the Czech Republic to this day. May the vision of our elders, generations of those who have nurtured and loved, who have mothered us and mothered this earth into goodness and strength and well-being, may that spirit, may that energy, may that power remain with us as we go from this place. So may it be.
And now before we go, we will share these words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And now we gather together in our traditional circle.